All right. Thank you everyone for joining today. This is Olga Redding with Iowa Organic Association. I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Iowa Way, for those of you who don't know me. And today we are hosting Joe Langmeier, and he's an organic farmer out of Wisconsin that has uh, organic cows. We're excited to hear from him and his story. He will be sharing his information and his PowerPoint as soon as I'm done sharing a few slides in regards to Iowa and our mission. So let me go ahead and get started with my PowerPoint. Alrighty. For those of you who don't know, we are a nonprofit organization that has been established in 2006, and we are committed to education, advocacy, and community cooperation. Our mission is to advance organic agriculture and food systems in the state of Iowa, and our members represent a diverse community of Iowa's organic farmers, gardeners, food and farm businesses, as well as anyone that champions the organic movement. And you guys are part of this community, so we're thankful to each and every one of you. As far as priorities, we have 4 overarching priorities that include education, outreach, advocacy, and community. And just to touch on these a little bit, as far as education, we provide programs, expertise, and information to help and expand and diversify the organic opportunities in Iowa. Some of the things that we have done were the growing organic expertise workshops that were geared towards technical service providers. We actually conducted that workshop with over almost 300 NRCS folks last February. In addition, we've received a REAP-SEP grant that we've been able to also share this program with 10 colleges across the state. It's growing organic expertise in colleges across Iowa. And we visited them in the fall of last year. We've reached about 330 students last fall, and we are also in the process of connecting back with these colleges again this semester and inviting these students to the organic farmers' farms to experience an organic farm firsthand. In addition, we also created the Midwest Organic Pork Conference. And as far as outreach, we are very, very we connect with our target audience and public and promote research, events, and resources that are beneficial to the organic community. And we're very interested to participate in various conferences, trade shows, and community events. We're actually part of the Moses 2022 conference. We'll be there as an exhibitor. And we also recruited a few organic pork farmers that will be presenting at Moses 22, to include Ron Roseman and Tom Princeton. So definitely check that out. And then as far as advocacy, we advance state level leadership policies that are dedicated to funding that supports Iowa's growing organic industry. We've met with Secretary Naig last year, and we are following up with him again this year. So more to come on that. And then as far as community, we encourage a culture of collaboration by connecting organic experts and resources through the entire state. So as far as beneficial resources that are available on our website, the Iowa Organic Resource Directory is a document that we've created that has over 900 businesses, to include nonprofits, educators, and service providers. Basically, that serves as a valuable tool for Iowa's organic community to achieve growth and continued success. This document right here is available in PDF format on our website, but also it is available in a paper copy. If you wish to get a paper copy mailed your way, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to mail that your way. In addition, some other programs that are available to organic farmers, in case if you're not familiar, there is this program called OTECP, which stands for Organic Transitional Education Certification Program. Actually, the deadline for this particular program is approaching very quickly. On February 4th. So if you haven't applied for this program, definitely be sure to connect with your FSA office in your county. They'll be able to help you with that. As far as like applying and getting things, done for this program, it should be pretty easy, especially if you have applied for the organic certification cost share program with FSA before. So definitely recommend doing that. And the other programs that are also available are non-insured crop disaster assistance program. We have a webinar on that on our YouTube channel, as well as the environmental quality incentive program through NRCS, and as well as a cover crop cost share program through NRCS. And then, of course, you guys, as a small nonprofit, we rely heavily on our community for support. So, of course, if you're interested to become a member, or possibly if you have a business and would like to become a sponsor, please feel free to reach out to myself and or Roz, our executive director, with questions. We're here to help, and thank you for your support. This is all I have for now. So, Joe, if you want to go ahead and get started, you certainly can.
All right. Hopefully I pushed this stuff correctly here. Okay, get my screen up. You see everything then?
Yeah, so okay. I can see your presentation now. Yep, looks good.
Okay. Well, I'm Joe Langmeier, farm in just south of Pershing, Wisconsin, so not that far from the Mississippi River. I farm with my brothers, a couple brothers and their wives, and dad. We lost mom to cancer about 8 years ago, but she was there, farming with us every step of the way. I'm like a third or fourth generation dairy farmer, and we've had a lot of success doing organic no-grain dairy. We did not know that's where we're going to end up. We're like most dairy farmers. We're feeding corn, do the whole gambit. But going organic was a big step, changing our mindset, and mom was a big part of that. She never liked me using chemicals. That was kind of a driving force to go organic. And as you'll find out here, one thing led to another. Next, we were not feeding grain and getting really good production and profitability, and we just kept going, and we're still doing that. And we have branched out into doing some other things, and I'll talk about at the very end. We're doing vegetables big time, and quite frankly, we're chasing a dream. I don't want to scare someone and say, they must not be. Nah, they're not making it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that still don't believe you can do it no grain, or we do once a day milking as well. They must not be paying the bills. That's why they're diversifying, but that's actually not the reason. But we've been dreaming of this for a long time, and we decided it's time to go for it. And we are fortunate that the cows are profitable as they are, and kind of the backbone of it until we get good at what we're doing. So, all right. See if I can get this to go. Oops. Okay. So we began the transition to organic in 1990, which was my junior year in high school. I said we just really the big driving factor was we hated chemicals, and we just didn't believe. We just wanted to farm without them. Didn't know how, and then we started hearing that there were guys that the organic market was beginning. We're with Organic Valley, and we had heard, like, if somebody can do it, it's worth us trying it. And if we're going to get a premium to do it too, well, that's a win-win, we felt. So we truly did it for the chemicals, and didn't know if the money would be there or not, but it was, and certainly was life-changing. In 99, we actually did decide to quit growing corn. We really focused on alfalfa, which Dad was always a big believer in alfalfa, and got him through the drought of '88. And we were always good at making it. We started adding grass as we, researched organic farming and seeing what guys were doing. And we heard grass, is what guys are doing, and realized we're going to start grazing. And we're doing small grains. We're doing oats. We did some succotash, which is oats, barley, and wheat. We were feeding like 12 pounds of that and stuff like that. So it wasn't like we set off to where we're at now. But we did feel that corn was a major factor in cow health, and we wanted to eliminate problems before they began. We didn't want to do the old way. farming all of our life, high vet bills and everything else. We wanted to eliminate problems. We felt corn, even though you could get milk out of it from the corn, obviously, we felt that there was a huge issue with health. We particularly feet, but we felt that we could still get good production without it. So we tried to do it without it. A lot of people thought it's because we are organic, you can't grow corn organically. And that it took years to convince people that is not why we're not growing corn. You can grow corn just fine organically. So our mindset was an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And healthy cows, fewer problems, a better quality of life for us, not just profitability, but our quality of life as a farmer is important too. And, people sometimes forget about that because you're working so hard to make it. It's important that you're enjoying what you're doing and you're doing it healthily. So, good production was important as well. It's not just you go organic, you don't have to worry about yield. A lot of times there's that mindset, as we did too. We've chased milk in the past. Dad's done every way you can do it. We were milking 200 cows back in the 70s when nobody had more than 40 cows, and getting made fun of for doing it. But he also had 7 brothers and sisters, and they were all farming together there for a while, so it kind of made sense. But we've chased production. We've done every single step you can do, and what we want to chase profitability, and you need some production to do that. But we really focused on keeping our expenses down. So in 2001, we went from chopping to 100%. Long story short, we broke down with our chopper, got a customer come in and do some bailage, and the light bulb went off and said, we're going to be able to make higher quality feed faster. It wasn't just that we could make the high quality feed, just the actual making of the hay process. We were going to be able to not necessarily drive like insanely fast, but just the whole process seemed faster than chopping. And we said, it takes less power, you're using less diesel fuel. It was just, we made an immediate switch. We threw the whole line out. We trade everything in, got everything set up for bailage. And we felt it allowed us to make even higher quality feed than we already were. And then it started teaching us that we weren't making as good a feed as we thought we were. I'll try and talk about that a little bit later. We were feeding at 12 pounds of grain in 1999, 2000, 2001. And then we started, as we were getting this better bailage, everything started like, these cows, we had cows milking 90 pounds. Like, are they really milking 90 pounds? I mean, we didn't have a 90-pound herd average, but still those big milkers, and they're breeding back on time. They have good flesh. Like, are they really milking 90 pounds because of 12 pounds? And we had over time slowly each year started backing down, mainly just because, we were feeding the grain. We didn't have a TMR because we fed our bales in the bunk. We rolled them out, and then we would sprinkle the grain on top. And that just didn't feel like a long-term thing we want to do, get beat up by cows the way our bunks were, pouring grain in there. So the less grain we could feed was helped us get our chores done faster and without getting beat up all the time. So by 2004, we were down to 1 pound of grain to the cows. We had already quit feeding grain to the calves in 2003. We felt that there's no way it was doing anything. We were feeding a lot of milk, high quality forage to the calves. And it was like, there's no way the little amount of grain we're doing is doing anything to these calves. And quite frankly, they actually started growing better when we took the grain away. Some people still argue that, especially if you're new to this, we hear that all the time. And it's fine that we had the same process. We asked ourselves hard questions we didn't know the answers, but we had to do a lot of observing. As a farmer, we're a scientist. That's what we got to look at it as. You've got to be observing and let the cows tell you what's happening. And that's kind of what we did. We trusted the cows. And they just kept making us question what everything was happening. So we basically were down in 2004 to just using the grain as a mineral carrier to get mineral into the cows. And then we decided just go free choice. And if it all goes wrong, we'll just buy grain back for the season. We'll start growing next year. Like, we're 1 year away, and really not even a year away. You can get organic grain in and start feeding it if we started had a lot of herd problems. But when we went in 2005 to 100% no grain, we never looked back. There was no issues whatsoever. So long term, we started focusing on our soil, and the better our soil got, the better our feed got. I'll talk about that as well. There's two ways to make better feed. Long term, it's better soil health, but it's also no matter what your soil health is, you can make better feed. And of course, as both things got better, our profitability got better. Our cows were healthier each season. They're producing more each season. We are a fall freshening herd, so we need a lot of high quality forage in the wintertime because that's when our main milking is. We're drying up in June and July. I mean, so it's easy to graze at that time. We don't need as high quality feed, and we try and graze for tonnage. But making high quality forage is the absolute backbone of the program. And then building your soil to make sure your forage is high and the practices of making that feed, growing our calves and stuff like that kind of are the next kind of steps. But what you can see the picture is, this is an alfalfa ryegrass field. This is a little bit of an older picture, probably from about 2015. The earlier picture was a red clover and Italian ryegrass. This is some of the best feed. I mean, if you have feed like this, you're going to be profitable. I remember particularly when we feeding this first crop feed in 2015, pounds milk a day, once a day. I'm sure we're going to be getting more twice a day with that, but I'll try and talk about that later. But a mix like you're seeing there was, at that time, we were doing about 15 pounds of alfalfa per acre, 20 pounds of ryegrass or whatever grass we were using, and sometimes as much as 25 or 30 pounds. We felt grass was so critical, we wanted to pour it on. You couldn't have just a couple blades of grass. Now we're down to more like the 5 pounds of red clover, 5 pounds of grass when we sow something, whether it's no-tilled or the only reason we plow any fields now is just because of the Brussels sprout, the vegetable operation, and after that harvest, so we do have some plowed ground. But if it was just dairy farming, we hadn't plowed our ground in over 10 years, and and some fields were longer than that. Until the Brussels came along, we had to start tearing up our sod to plant into. So the main thing, guys, whether it's grazing or forage, on making forage, it's critical to cut the crop before it heads out. You can't have your grass heading out. Your milk is going to plummet. You can't have flowered out alfalfa. Red clover is a little weird. The red clover is going to get your red flower on it, and it does not seem to be the same issue as alfalfa. If you see flowers, you've already missed your best milk. Yes, you're going to get a little more tonnage, but if you want to get production, you're going to get a little bit less on first crop. But we found it by the end of second, third, and fourth crop, you make up for that a little bit. Instead of trying to get a massive yield on first crop, it just does never seem to work. You've got to make each crop as high a quality as possible from our experience. So when you go no grain and you take the grain away, you are taking away starch. That is one energy form. And for most of us, like, we thought that was the only energy form. Nobody was thinking about grass back in the day, or at least, not mainstream. And nobody was thinking enough or very few were thinking enough that you could completely replace that with grass. But grass is sugar, and that's what the cows evolved was grass, to eat grass, not grain. And to get milk production, you've got to have it boot stage. You can't have heads coming out, or you're just losing too much. It's so important. I can't stress that enough. I said, you can take away the grain and the corn silage, but don't focus on what a cow needs. It needs protein, energy. Okay, your fats are in there, your essential oils or whatever in the plants anyway. But basically, when you take that corn away, like I said, you've got to replace it with something. This is why most people think you're going to have super skinny cows and not going to breed back, because you know what's going to happen if you feed straight alfalfa. They're going to burn the whatever fat they had on their back. They're going to burn it off, and they're probably not going to breed back. And this is why most people, if you have that in your head, you got to feed grain. No, you have to feed energy. Just remember that you have to feed energy, and that's the grass, and you've got to make it right. You can't make orchard grass, that's super headed out, or whatever grass it is. The ryegrasses to me are the highest energy grasses. I would at least try and get some of those in your rotation, at least on one field. It's fine to have some orchard grass. You can get high quality production on any grass on first crop if you make it right. Where ryegrass shines is those later cuttings. It just is a lot higher energy and palatability throughout the season in general versus some of the other grasses. But first crop, if you make anything right, you're going to get milk. And we don't view 25 or 30% protein feed like alfalfa. That's not high quality. That's an unbalanced diet. That's too rich. So we try and make all of our stuff at around 20% protein, 22%. And I'll show you a graph here, or our scouting stuff that we use to kind of know where we're at. But it just comes down to that grass every time. And you know, it's your job. It's our job as a farmer to make that feed right for the cow. If you do that, and yes, it's a higher pressure situation. It's more volatile than grain. It changes by the day, and obviously weather can complicate things. It can be peak performance there, and you got to make that decision. Do you cut before the rain or after the rain? Well, just don't get it rained on either. That's just as important. Do not take a little bit of shield and cut it early, then get it rained on. That is so critical. You've got to be scouting. You've got to cut at that right maturity, early to mid bud for alfalfa. I said red clover is a little tricky. We haven't figured out, and quite frankly, we don't think it matters. Red clover just seems to be pretty high quality no matter what. But you don't want to be seeing your purple alfalfa flowers on. That's too late. If it gets a late bud, you're probably still okay, but it all depends on where your grass is in conjunction with that. Another big thing, we cut everything at 4 inches. It could be 3.5 depending on the hay binds. We actually put high stubble kits on our disc binds to make sure we could cut it at the right distance. The old sickle bind was perfect at 4 inches, but the disc binds cut a little bit tighter even when we raise them up. That bottom part of the plant is not that high quality anyway. You're going for yield, but you're stunting your growth, and if you're putting grass in there, you're going to kill your grass out. It's not going to last very long because your growing point is different than alfalfa. We had actually seedmen ask us, how is you guys' grass lasting so long? I got guys who were saying their grass is dead after 1 or 2 seasons. And the only thing we can tell that we're doing different than anybody else is because we cut it high. And our grass just lasts year after year after year. Swat it out. Don't windrow it. I know if you're any old timers listening, quit windrowing it. Don't be like Dad. It took him a while to convince, not too hard, but it's still like you want to windrow it because you don't want to drive on it. But the studies are showing, and our own experience as well, is you're getting more dirt in your windrow because you're scalping the ground than you are because you're driving one tire track on that swatted row. And I think that's the main reason guys windrow it. Don't do it. It never works out right. The top will be kind of dry, the inside will be wet, but it's never quite right. And I guarantee you, if you're in a bailage situation, the cows know. When you chop things, you change it up. It's like instant oatmeal versus steel cut oatmeal. It's a lot more. There's a difference there with the fiber and how you eat it, the texture and stuff. So you can get away with things chopping, and that is a pro sometimes. Because you don't always make perfect feed, even us. But you got to you've got to make the hay regardless. Okay, you've got to do everything you can to make it the best you can. I'm going to just keep pounding that because this is the whole thing. If you don't take this serious, you don't have corn to just say, the cows are going to milk. I just pour a little more corn in the ration. Everything is relying on that forage. You've got to take it seriously. And the windrowing is hurting you. I guarantee you the cows know if it's been windrowed versus swatted. I guarantee you, if you don't wrap your bales for the night, you say, I'll wrap them in the morning, they will know it. And they will not milk as well. You can just tell that feed is not, they don't hit it as hard. It's like Thanksgiving meal. You want your cows attacking like it's Thanksgiving, like this is delicious. And you're just going to keep eating. When it's not perfect, yes, they eat because they have to eat. But you can tell. And it also means they're not going to milk as much. So cut it 4 inches high, swat it out. We took the back end of this line off. It's full swatable as far as you can get, only maybe a little bit of depending on which brand we have, New Holland and Vermeer, each one throws a little bit differently. There's a little bit wider. It's not a perfect swat, full swat, but that is really, really important. We try and make our feed at about 50%, sometimes 55, sometimes it's 45. Yeah, well, we get a little bit, maybe the first stuff we start on the day at 60% moisture. Yeah. And of course, we get a little bit that's maybe 40%. But when you're doing bailage, you want to be looking at 50%. You want to make that feed in the field is already your TMR. It's already perfectly blended for that cow. So all she has to do is eat and make milk. She doesn't have to sit there like, well, I got 65% moisture on most of the feed, and then I got to go eat dry hay to balance my pH of the rumen back out. If you're at 50%, right around there, you're in really good shape. She just has to eat and convert it to milk. It's the simplest way for her to do that. So it's that Goldilocks. It's not too wet, it's not too dry. Hay in a day, we do it often, particularly on second, third, and fourth crop. You don't have to do it on first crop. It's a little harder to do on first crop. The weather's not as hot, and that's okay because the weather's also usually cooler. So you're not losing near the energy levels and nutrient levels overnight as you would be on say a July cutting where it's really hot out and you windrow it and I'll cut it tomorrow or I'll make it tomorrow. You are losing production. So we don't always make it that way on first crop, but second, third, and fourth, it's pretty easy to do. And we don't always do it on that either. It all depends on the weather. If you have a cool day, overcast, it all depends. But we always swat it. Don't windrow it up and say, I'll windrow it, that way I can get to it later. No, it'd be better to try and do it and cut it, make what you got, and start again on the next stuff. Make the stuff you can, each thing you can as best as it can be done. The longer the hay sits, the more milk you're losing. So we use the UW Extension peak chart. We've been using that for decades. It just has the list, the height of alfalfa, and then it shows the relative feed of at early bud, mid bud, late bud, flowers, that kind of stuff. So we're out there first crop and we're scouting multiple times before first cutting, a week ahead of time. You're watching like, okay, you're watching, see where it's at, is it knee high, and when you start seeing it get higher, you get out there and you see where it's at, and like, it's not even got a bud on it yet. You got to do it multiple times. That first crop sets the stage for the whole season. You don't want to just wait and say, it looks like it's tall out there, I'll just go cut today. Don't look at the weather. We're studying the weather for 2 weeks at a time out constantly, out getting the best feel we can of the weather patterns and being ready for when that moment comes. And hopefully we can make hay in 2-3 days, depending on acreage. But, if you're cutting it at 170, 180 relative feed quality, if you're doing things right, you're going to end up at least 150, 160, and hopefully higher than that. And the thing I always forget when I present things or talk to people is when you do a feed test, well, there's a lot of things to look at. But one thing that's always been a key to us if we're going to get really good milk production in this season is when our net energy lactation, I believe it's called, the NEL, when that's over 0.7, that's when we've got our best production. If you're in the 0.6s or less, it's not that they're not going to eat it. But it's like, this feed looks good, but it just feels like, why aren't they milking? And we've had that. And anytime we're over 0.7, we'll get miller. And to the point now, we're consistently getting to the higher 0.7. 0.78 was the last time we tested. I wish I would have tested those ones that were in the pictures earlier. We didn't test feed that year. If that wasn't a 0.8, I don't know what if you can ever make it. I think you can. That's our goal, is to get to 0.8 on NEL on alfalfa and grass. We had a feed man tell us once that we were making such high quality feed that he thought that we're almost to the point of corn silage. Not there, but close. And if you can make milk on corn silage, and our feed is almost as good as corn silage, that's where the mindset is. Like, that's, if you can make it like that, it's a perennial crop. It costs less to put in. You're putting in once, it lasts 3-4 years or longer, depending on how you're doing things. But if you're in that upper 0.7, they're going to milk. They are going to milk. Okay, so making high quality feed, as you can tell, is super important. And another thing is, we do know we have good soil. We've been managing it a certain way for a long time, and we're very fortunate to have the soil we have. We have very good soil. And when we talk to people, some people think, well, that's why you can do it. And obviously, yeah, that's helping us with tonnage and quality. But don't let that be an excuse, because no matter what your quality is of your soil, that crop is still there. And no matter what your soil is, you can still make it the best it can be made. And that's whether it's grazing or cutting. But in a cutting situation, you can't just say, well, my soil is not as good. I don't have as high organic matter as these guys, or soil life, or whatever. It's still feed, and you can still make it as best it can be made in that moment. And if you can start doing that, and then long-term start improving your soil fertility, looking at your soil tests, gypsum was a big key. We started putting gypsum on, getting our calcium levels up. Without getting into all the details of why it's gypsum high cal lime versus regular lime, use the gypsum or high cal lime. I can tell you it makes a difference. Our energy levels really started going up. We started getting plants that were, the alfalfa stems, the clover stems were full inside. They weren't hollow. And that's when things really, everything started taking off. Cow health started taking off. Calf health started taking off. You could just see everything had more vigor. And it wasn't like we're doing a bad job before. We were making good alfalfa before, but the problem was it was straight alfalfa. As we added the grass, even then, we just started getting things more nuanced. And over time, you will start climbing and start getting into profitability. Improve your herd genetics. Don't just get animals bred. I know a lot of guys use bulls. We have 2 in the past, and you can improve it with bulls. We're 100% AI, but really don't sleep on that either. Look for animals with health traits. I'll get into that a little bit, but herd genetics are important. Dry cow and calves is really our second. Feed number 1, dry cow and calf program is second. You've got to start off in a no grain situation. Your calves are so important because you're not growing well there. They're going to be behind by the time you get to a cow, and they're going to they might not milk as much. So you really want to be focused on a dry cow program, have a good mineral program. We graze them really well. They don't need to be super high quality pastures, but when you take away grain, you can't, dry cows are known for getting some of the worst feed on the farm sometimes. You don't want to do that. We fed them some pretty high quality feed before too with pastures, and really we haven't had much of an issue. But we generally just try and go for the tonnage, and it can be headed out grass. We go a little more mob grazing style, and don't worry about if there's a little bit left. Try and mashing it down, and it's worked very well for a very long time doing that. And we like to run our dry cows, our bred heifers, the young yearling heifers from the year before they're bred. We like to run them all together. We used to separate the groups, not anymore. We found it, particularly the young cattle, perform a lot better. You just can tell they're way more content. The whole herd just feels really comfortable. They flow together. The old cows take the lead, the calves follow. Instead of being on one part of the farm with the calves, they always seem to be a little bit on edge, a little nervous. And when we start doing that, not only did it clear up our chores, now we only have one group of cattle over there, and we still in the remaining milk cow herd as they continue to dry up. It makes your life easier that way too, and that's important. It's not just about money, but if you can do things faster or easier on the farm, it makes farming enjoyable. So we calve right out on the pasture. We used to sort them out. We'd say, hey, what's the 20 calves, or the 20 closest cows, we would move to the paddock where the calf just there. We quit doing that too. It's like, why move them out of things? Like, they just got stressed out trying to sort them out. And it's, once you start putting everybody together, you can pretty much tell, because they start separating themselves. You're like, she's going to calve. And it's been doing that for a very long time, and it's been very effective. And the cows, once they get the system, they know the routine. You go out there, we take the ranger out, get the calf, walk the cow and calf down the pasture to the lane and back to the building to get them on the trailer and take them back to the milk barns. And we milk them once a day from there. But aside from a little bit of walking, and depending how far it is, sometimes we'll carry the calf or not, but generally they know what they're doing. And you'll get a few wild young ones. That was first year, they tend to be, they're not sure what's happening. They're a little more nervous, but it's a really good system. And then we move the dry cows usually daily, once a day. Depending on the situation, we might move them multiple times, give cross fence a paddock. And we try to be a little bit not as intense with them as far as our labor. but it all depends on the situation. You can manage them just as hard if you want as the milk cows. This is just a picture of the milk cow herd grazing away. Another picture of the milk cows. It always seems like the cows in front are the most ugliest ones. They want to show themselves off and they're disgusting. But that cow in the front there, she's not much. But yeah, just a picture. Picture of the calf barn. This is a little bit old here, but we don't have this many calves anymore. But we generally have about 10 calves in the pen at this time. And then we back it down right now. We only do like 5 calves in the pen, and we only do about 20 calves. This barn was doing 80 calves when we were before the Brussels sprouts years ago. And you can see we're throwing the hay in the bunks there. We had hay sitting out all the time. Now we just feed it, take the milk cow bale with our bale and roller, and just feed to the calf, so it's not sitting out like that. You can see the white pail in the front there, the white bucket there. That's how we feed our calves. We pour milk in there, and it's a nipple system. And there's in the inside there's a hose to the bottom, and so they can suck the milk up. And they get a lot of saliva doing that. And it's been a really good system for a very long time. It's a picture of our feed. We don't do dry hay. And yet you're looking at dry hay right there on the right, the green stuff. We might do 1 or 2 dry bales a year, and it's for the calves. And we like to start the calves off with some dry hay. We literally take a handful, we'll throw it in the bunk. And as you're looking into the calf pens right now, when they come in from the pasture, the cow and calf, the cow goes in the barn to be milked, and the calf goes in that pen, and it's free housing just like you're seeing now. We used to put hog panels up, and it was individual, the isolation principle. And over time, we said to heck with that. We felt it was more stressful than that, and it was just putting them in together. And we felt the calves were stronger, quicker, more aggressive, sooner doing that. And we have never had calf issues from them mingling like that. We used to believe that. We don't anymore. It's easier on chores. It's faster. The calves are happy. They can run around, get more activity. So yeah, just another picture there. And we did do some crossbreeding. I'll try and talk about that later. We're not anymore. But we love this calf here, that picture, because you can she's full. We really do want to try and breed for a cow that's going to be wide in the front, really wide open rumen. And we don't really care whether it's short or tall or medium. We want good feet and legs so it can handle the rigors of pasture grazing. And concrete. We want to build those calves to milk. So we give them a gallon of milk per feeding. So that's 2 gallons of milk a day, and sometimes more if we have extra milk. We do it. We just give them our high SMAC cell count milk. We're pulling that stuff online. We've been doing that for decades. I know they say not to do it. Some articles say you want to feed your high quality milk. We've been doing it for years. Our cell count, in general, we're averaging about 150,000 a year, give or take. And we've been doing that for decades. I don't think that's an issue. We like to follow. So in those buckets, we'll pour, if there's 5 calves in the pen, we pour 5 gallons of milk, or 10 calves, we pour 10 gallons of milk. And when they get done drinking that right towards the end, we follow that with warm water in those buckets. You obviously saw in the pictures, we had the free choice waters, the blue waters there. They can drink water anytime, always. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actually feeding them warm water as part of their feeding. And that helps get us to, if you imagine, that full stomach every time, and challenge that calf to keep eating. Try and stretch that stomach out if it can be done, and just keep that rumen plump full. They're well hydrated, so you're going to want good clean bedding. Keep it dry. Because you will notice that you will go through a little more bedding. They're so full of fluids, it does show. But yeah, build that calf to be a high forage milker. At 3 months of feeding, so we feed that calf for 3 months, and it might take a few days to get up to a gallon. You might not feed it day 1 a gallon of milk per feeding. Just kind of let the calf tell you. If it wants to drink a little more, great. If not, don't force it. She'll be fine. We feed colostrum on the first feeding, and after that, we just throw the first milking, second milk, and third milk, and we throw that stuff all together. We used to separate out. We kept the second feeding, fed it. We just combine it all now. and no issues there. But 3 months of feeding milk like that and water, and then after the third month, we start backing the milk down. So instead of a gallon a calf, it could be 3/4 or half a gallon. You just slowly work that ratio of milk from 1 gallon down to 0. And we do it over the course of a month. And at the same time, you're generally adding more warm water because they still want to drink. And pretty soon they just get to the point like, wait a minute, this is just water. There's no milk here. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to eat feed. And you literally can see it. They'll just like, some of the calves like, I'm not really interested in drinking anymore. I'm just going to eat. And that's how we discovered to do a quiet, stress-free weaning versus listening to Bella for a week and be stressed out. And we've had issues in the past where the calves got sick at weaning time, bad weather, high stress situation. We pretty much eliminated that. And air and bedding is important. Air. Let's see if I can go back here. If you look in the back, you can see the shade cloth. We also have curtains up at the top, but we almost never close them unless it's a direct north blizzard coming in and frigid temperatures. So that's almost always the curtains open. But that black shade cloth you see, we discovered that what it does is it allows fresh air in without the draft. Closing that curtain as we did, that ammonia is coming off that bedding pack no matter what. And if you get in the right foggy situations, that warm, terrible weather that you can get into, 35, 40 degrees, you can get that ammonia going through the herd with high quality air. It changes the game. And we just daily, we will lift it up. If it's a warm day, we lift it up so it's fresher. It doesn't get so hot in there. And if it's going to be a cold night, we shut it back down. But that really changed the game. It keeps the air fresher without that breeze blowing on them. Yeah, so with once a day milking, we still feed the calves twice a day on once a day milking. We save enough milk during that morning milking. We put in a big, 55-gallon drum or whatever it holds, and we made a little milk plate cooler kind of thing. Stick it in there, run cold water through it, save the water, and so we cool it down and use that water. We cool the milk down, which warms that water up, and then at nighttime we hook it up to the hot water, heat the milk back up, and let the water go into the other drum, and you're ready for feeding. And we milk them from day one. As soon as we bring them into the pasture, no matter what time of day it is, we'll milk them. If it's 3 in the afternoon, we'll milk them, and then the next day, we usually milk at 4 in the morning, depending on the time of year. In the summer, we're probably milking at 5 o'clock in the morning, just because we don't have any. We're drying most of the herd up, but it's once a day from essentially day one. We've heard people that have talked to us about it, or in the past, people have tried going once a day, and they do it mid lactation or late lactation, and we feel that's where the nightmares of once a day can come into. We have not had mastitis issues, cell count issues. We feel that if you do it at the end or middle lactation, that's when the problems can come in. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. We expected cell count issues. We expected more mastitis issues, and it simply hasn't been the case. What we are seeing this particular season, the 2021 lactation freshening time, is we've never seen our cows leak as much milk as they had this year. And that's the first time since we've been doing this, which was, we did a trial run in 2011, the fall of 2011, with 12 cows. And in 2012, we went 100% the whole herd. And the cows that leaked milk back then were the same couple cows that were leaking milk twice a day. So we didn't feel that was a once a day issue. And there weren't very many leakers, but there were 2 or 3 of them, And all of a sudden this year, they are really leaking, like the whole herd, and it's a serious amount of milk. So we're going to be keeping our eye on that. And I don't know, we made pretty good feed this year. We did not take time to test it this year, so I can't say exactly what our numbers were, if it was that, but it was definitely the stalls, or the sand stalls are very dirty. And that's a bummer doing chores that way, but we still have not had mastitis issues. Our cell count probably this year is a little bit higher than normal. We're ranging at 160 to 200,000 for most of the season, up and down, depending on that. But some of that is because our main milker, when it's breast belt season, our main quality guy, my youngest brother, He's also the rough sprout harvester. So the rest of us are in there. We're not as good as he is on some things, but so it would probably be lower with him in there full time, but so be it. It's still all right. So back to genetics, we're 100% AI. Some of the things we look for AI is calves. That's actually our number one. When we look for bulls, the first thing we look for is calves bulls at 3, 4, 5%. We get nervous doing 6, 7%. We'll use it if it's got a lot of other traits and bloodline that we really, really want. But we feel like if a cow that can pump a calf out with the least amount of stress possible gives it a chance to have the best life it can have. It is obviously the most traumatic event in that cow's life to give birth. And we want to try and do everything we can to minimize issues. And yeah, those calves are born a little smaller than some of the big calves, those 10, 12% calves bulls. But we felt like they just keep growing. They grow their whole life. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, you can never tell they were a calves animal. It just doesn't seem to be an issue, but we know it affects the cow, and they feel like they just recover quicker and they're ready to milk, especially when you take that grain away. We want to do everything we can to make our feed as powerful as it can be. We don't want energy from our feed being going to recover from calving or use as little of it as possible. So that's really was our thinking from day one. High productive life scores, we like to look at that. DPR, good feet and legs, strong open body. We basically are back to 100% Holsteins. We still got a few crossbreds in the herd, but we're breeding in the Holsteins. We just do well with Holsteins. We felt like the crossbreeds for us, the good ones are good. It's not about what's better to me. It's like it's a good cow is a good cow. That's what we have found. We just like it's just easier to manage the Holsteins for us. So, but there's plenty of other reasons to do things. So we ended up 100% no grain because we kept being more profitable. That's what we were doing. We were chasing profitability. We've talked to people over the years, and somebody goes, "Oh, you guys, yeah, you can make it because you got a premium." Well, that doesn't explain the 8 years that we were no grain, 100% no grain before the premium. I mean, it's easy for people. So my point is, you got to trust yourself, or this can be done. Don't take advice from someone who's not doing it. I listen to everything. I listen to the critics and stuff like that because they can open your mind up to something you're missing. But at the same time, be careful. Don't be the neighbor that wants to go organic or ask you about organic, and then they never show up, and you find out later on, and you talk to them. This is a condensed true story. The neighbor ends up quitting dairy farming. We end up finding out, how come you didn't come over and talk about it? And they said, well, they talked to the people down at the local watering hole, and they said it couldn't be done. And it's like, wow, that if they asked us in church, and we didn't want to talk about it in church, so we don't want to talk business. So come over another day. Well, that day never happened. But you would think at least you talk to the people who are doing it before you make your decision. So I was no grain. I'm telling you, it can be done. Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult, a little more challenges. A lot of people don't like making hay because the weather is way more tougher than just going out during harvesting corn. Just because of that volatility, and that can be a tough decision, but it is worth it. So yeah, I mean, obviously the premium now with the grass milk market with Organic Valley and there's other markets out there, I'm sure. Certainly that's icing on the cake, but we were chasing profitability, and the more expenses we got out and the higher quality feed we made allowed us to start doing a lot of good things. So our motto is, athletes get paid a lot of money and they still go broke. It's not because they didn't make enough millions. You can make that argument, well, they could have been making more millions, but it's your expenses. You really got to keep an eye on them. And being an organic farm and grazing is a great thing. I haven't focused a lot on the grazing right now, but obviously we graze pretty hard. We rotationally graze, and obviously that's huge. That's your cheapest source of feed, high quality feed. The cows are doing most of the work. It's healthy for them to be out there. Their feet and legs are, being out on the dirt instead of the concrete. And if you manage your pastures the same way, I tell you, we have not done a good job in the last couple of years, certainly because we've been focusing on vegetables. Our pastures have not done well since 2012 when that drought wiped a lot of our white clover out of our pastures. So our production and our quality of our pastures hasn't been as good. And we haven't, just the last year or two, we finally started getting back on the horse there. And getting those pastures back up to snuff. But getting solid production at low expenses, which drove us and made us successful. Focus on the details. A little bit about the future. How much? How am I doing old on time?
We have about 6 minutes left. So, we've gotten quite a few really good questions. So I would like to get to the questions at some point here without going over for too long.
I
Yeah.
just clicking through some pictures. But yeah, so I mean, think about putting some other stuff out there for the future, like some trees and stuff like that. So we're obviously doing vegetable farming there and trying to focus on having fun as well. I'm gonna say one real quick thing. I know we're talking dairy farmers here, folks, but I have this conversation a lot, and there's a lot of animosity when you talk about the plant-based milks and meats. I'm in favor of them. I feel I'm a heavy plant-based eater myself. I don't care if it's called oat milk, almond milk. I don't care. I know a lot of you get very worked up about that. This is a discussion for another day, but I'm telling you, that's a market. That's consumers, regardless of what you feel about it. There's a consumer there that wants to eat or drink that. Why not, as farmers, look at that as an opportunity? Obviously, if it's going directly against dairy, which guess what, guys, vegans and vegetarians don't drink our milk anyway. Okay, so there's an argument there. I'd say open your mind up to other avenues here for the future, because who knows what farmers going to go. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And don't miss it just because of your ideals and stuff like that. But there's new techniques. The future is exciting. This is a no-tilled field, putting Brussels sprouts in, crimping down rye, putting that in there. You know, looking at insects. What you're seeing on there, it's hard to tell, but that's actually ladybug larvae. You know, so that was natural. We didn't buy ladybugs, but there's some really exciting stuff here, I think, when farming. Strip tilling, living mulch. This is a Brussels sprout. You can't see it. But we strip tilled an alfalfa field, and this is that same field a little while later. We had a really high quality field here. Not perfect, have some issues yet there, but there's some really exciting things to be looking at. Cover cropping, this was in 2021 here. At the time of this picture, which is sometime in July, we had only had less than 3 inches of rain at that point, and that's what this field looked like. And you can see green all in the background as well. It was deceiving. And so this is the last slide. I always love this picture because the cow I'm petting is called Piglet, and the other cow standing over there facing the camera is Baby Swiss. They're a Hall of Fame cows. I mean, they're not with us anymore. This is an older picture, about 10 years, but they were some powerhouse no grain fed cows, and great genetics, great body, and they had great family line. So I'll shut up for questions there, but.
All right. What a beautiful picture, Joe, and what an amazing presentation. And thank you for all you do. You're definitely doing amazing work. If you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen, that'd be just fine. So I have received a few questions from Troy. He said, how many acres and how many cows and what kind of breeds do you have?
Well, I can't say we're 100% Holstein because I know there's a couple Fleckby and Jersey Cross. There's probably like 4 of them. We're down into like anywhere from 70 to 90 cows. We were at 150 cows before we went into vegetable production. Okay. It's easier for me to talk it that way. It gets a little confusing now, but, you know, we now have about 550 tillable acres, and some of that has our, you know, the pasture ground and stuff like that you were seeing on that. We turned some of the fields into high quality pastures, but,
okay. Why the switch from alfalfa to red clover?
We found something interesting out when you take, you know, when you're rotating corn or small grains and alfalfa, obviously you can't put alfalfa back into an alfalfa field because of the toxicity factor. And when we took corn out of the factor and then the small grain out of the equation, we didn't know what can we rotate our alfalfa into. And we realized the old timers used to do, you know, red clover, and was like, well, why can't we do that? And when we started doing red clover, it took us to another level. So red clover, they actually preferred over alfalfa. It's more palatable. They will eat the red clover bale every time before they eat the alfalfa bale, no matter how good we make the alfalfa. We found that out. Not that alfalfa's not good, but they like the red clover better. We got a little too carried away probably with red clover. We've pretty much been 100% red clover. We're probably gonna start going a little bit more towards alfalfa again in the mix. But it's just extremely high quality feed, very palatable. Cows love it, and that's what we want. A palatable feed that they want to eat a lot of.
Okay, perfect. When do the new calves go into pasture? What percentage of heifers are saved as replacements? What is done with bull calves?
Uh, the bull calves are just sold right away within a couple of days to our neighbors. You know, they buy them. You know, we just sell them conventionally. You know, they're not buying as organic calves. Um, the right now we're keeping about 20 to 25 heifer calves a year, and once we get to the a level we want or get it out of the cows we want, uh, then we just start selling the heifers too. And our buyers, we sell to several different neighbors that buy our calves, and they have said time after time, year after year, without us asking, they have flat out said our calves don't get sick. Period. They've had to give shots to all the other calves they're buying, and those are conventional calves that they're buying, and they buy our calves, and they don't even have to give shots to them. They've said that repeatedly over the years as our calf vigor, our health is just we can see it just how much you can see that vigor that they
Yeah,
have, and they
that's
just
an amazing testament to your cows. That's amazing. Do you keep grazing until the first killing frost? How is the Bailage fed in bunks or out on pasture?
the Bailage is fed in bunks. We tweaked the barn, and so now it's kind of like a drive-by feed on the outside. So we have a bale feeder that just unrolls the bale, basically the opposite of baling it. Pretty simple, and we just feed different crops, first crop, second crop, depending on what our feed test or what we know the feed was when we made it. You know, if it was a grassier feed, we try and blend that with a field that might have been mostly legume and didn't have as much grass in or something like that. Trying so that TMR mindset, having it balanced. The grazing wise, you know, we'll graze as long as we can. And this year I think was one of the best years we've had in a while. We had some really great late season grazing in end of October and November. We haven't had that kind of quality in a long time at the end of the season. But middle of the season was a little rough. It was a little dry. July got a little hairy there, but we pulled her out at the end because some late season high quality stuff. But the frost, we don't care. We graze until we can't.
Gotcha. Any tips on transitioning a confinement milk cow to homestead family cow? Ration suggestions for family cow that does not have access to Bailage.
Can you say that? Can you say that again?
Any tips on transitioning a confinement milk cow to basically a homestead family cow operation?
Uh, just start letting them out. They'll remember, their genes will bring them back. They'll know what to do. You know, get them out grazing once for an hour or two. That was how we did it when we did it way back in the day, going from conventional. We were transitioning. We didn't have any pastures ready. We just fields, but we let the cows out for an hour. And once they knew what was going on, they start learning, and each generation is going to get a little better. But let them out for a little while. If you're not up, if you don't have your standards to follow, let the cows start getting used to it. They'll start wanting to get out there, start building your pastures, and work on your fencing, and
Mhm.
it'll be all right.
And Joe, you sell primarily to Organic Valley, correct?
100%, yeah.
Okay, and so the question is, if you want to respond, what are you getting for your grass-fed organic milk now?
I think right now, I think we're, I think last check, I think we had like $39 on there. That
Okay,
was nice.
okay,
It's
okay,
not, I think this is the high time of the year, just, but yeah, I mean, can't complain about that. That's pretty nice.
okay. Which grasses and percentage seeded with your alfalfa or with your red clover?
How much grass do we put with the clover?
Mm-hmm.
Generally now we're probably at 5 pounds. In the past we've gone as high as 25, 30. I feel like now 5 pounds is sufficient. 10 pounds maybe, depending on the
And
field.
Troy is asking $39 per what quantity?
Per hundredweight.
Okay. Okay. Margaret is asking, what is the species mix in your pastures?
A little bit of everything. There's pastures that are kind of orchard grass and tall fescue based. Those pastures are run. I said white clover, what used to be in everything. As I said, we've kind of run out of white clover, and we're starting to rejuvenate those now. I like to have a pasture that has predominantly or all, ryegrass and white clover. There's some meadow fescue, some fistolium. Some of the pastures have been in a long time, are just almost all orchard grass, or there's some touchy areas of bluegrass, but you don't want bluegrass. Get it out of there. Timothy, we don't really care for. Certainly, if you have tall fescue, hopefully it's the improved tall fescues, not the old school Kentucky 31. You're not going to get production, whether it's milk or meat gains. Don't get that out of there. We like to put a little chicory or plantain in when we can. Have some of that herbs for mineralization there. Not very much, not even sometimes maybe a half pound an acre, if that. But get a little bit of diversity in there. I don't like to put ryegrass in with a lot of other things because they like it so much they end up just rubbing that out. So I like to keep like the perennial ryegrass, retiring ryegrass, fistolium, kind of together. Keep it away from the other one, especially if tall fescue. Even though improved tall fescues, they may be good, but it feels like it's a little harder to graze evenly, at least for us.
You bet. And then the next question, what is your red clover seeding rate for hay with the grass?
Red clover, generally 5 pounds, sometimes 6. Sometimes that's to establish the stand. If we have a stand that's just kind of starting to thin out, like we're going with our no-till drill, and generally I'll put about 2 pounds in there. Just try and keep it so it doesn't get too far behind. That generally works. Alfalfa in the past, I say we're in that 15 to 18 pounds. This spring, I'm going to put an alfalfa field in for the first time in quite a few years, and I'm probably going to put about 10 pounds of alfalfa, and possibly even 5 pounds of red clover, maybe at least 2 pounds. And I'll probably put grass in, 5 pounds of grass in, probably in the fall, just because I don't want to get killed out with our oats if things go wrong with our oats. We don't feed any oats. We grow the oats for our cover crop, and we save all the seed and we sow down our cover crops with our own oats. So we don't have to buy it. So, in case you're wondering.
Very interesting. Awesome. Well, there's 2 more questions and we'll wrap things up since we went over here today. Apologies about that, guys. Okay. Next question. Why fall freshening? Better price for winter milk?
Well, it is. We actually went fall freshening in the mid 90s before we were even transitioning to organic. It had nothing to do for us with premiums. Another misconception when people say, "Well, that's like," of course it's nice. We did it we liked calving in the fall. Dad just said it was a little drier in the fall. You didn't have those cold, wet springs and have calf issues. He just felt it was really about the cow and the calf. He also thought, coming from a year-round dairy lifestyle, when we finally went seasonal, he liked the idea of having the summers off. We used to drive the herd up 100%, and that he liked to have the summer off and travel, go on vacation. Mom was from Phoenix, so we go down to Phoenix for a week, in the summer. Not good to go to Phoenix in the summer, but a little hot down there. But that was really why. It was about the cattle. Generally, it's drier and easier in the calves. That's why.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right. So the final question, I guess, here, and everybody keeps complimenting you, Joe, on the great work that you do. So kudos for sure. And so the question is, thank you for sharing. This may sound funny on this side of the ocean, but do you use the pasture for other benefits? Example, like edible mushroom growing?
No, but we've noticed we're starting to get, in some areas you'll see the puff balls coming out, and we will eat the puff balls. But yeah, we've seen some really good things with perennial pastures over time. What's happening out there, and certainly our Brussels have. We got some pretty high organic matter because of what we've been doing, and hopefully we can continue to build that, doing what we're doing.
Yeah. All righty. Well, Joe, Troy had to say it. My hat is off to you. I am older than you, grew up on a conventional dairy farm, but your insights and wisdom absolutely rings true. Congratulations. Well done, sir. Awesome. Well, You guys, apologies again for going over today. Joe, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your wisdom with all of us. Very insightful, to say the least. What I will do, you guys, is I will upload this recording to our YouTube channel. And so you can view it again if you need to, or share it with whoever may benefit from this knowledge. And I'll also be sharing a short survey. It'll take you 5 minutes to fill out. We use your responses for grant reporting purposes and to just simply know how to best serve you into the future. Again, Joe, thanks for your time. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for all you do. Your passion, is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.